Phase 2 of Vande Bharat mission begins to bring back stranded countrymen from 31 countries till May 22nd. 177 Indians to arrive at Kochi from Dubai as part of Operation Samudra Setu. INS Jalashwa sets sail from Maldives with 588 Indians. Active COVID-19 cases in India reach 53,035 with 2,752 fatalities and 30,152 recoveries. Total recovery rate is 35.09%. Cases across the world rise to over 45.5 lakh cases and 3 lakh fatalities. Almost 16.5 lakh patients recover globally. And truck collision in UP's Auraiya kills 24 migrant laborers and injures 38. President and PM express condolences over mishap. UP CM announces compensation of 2 lakh for those killed and 50,000 for severely injured. In another road mishap, 6 laborers killed in Madhya Pradesh. Right, so Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman on Saturday rolled out the 4th tranche of economic stimulus as part of rupees 20 lakh crore package announced by Prime Minister Narendra Modi to support the coronavirus ravaged economy. So in the first 3 installments, government announced a slew of measures for farmers, MSMEs and migrant laborers. 4th was about reforms in 8 sectors, and we'll talk about coal and mining first. So commercial mining in coal sector has been permitted, and this will increase self-reliance in the sector. So we have the graphics. So private sector participation in coal sector through revenue sharing mechanism and entry norms will be liberalized, and this will create diversified opportunities in coal sector. Moving on, coal-based mining extraction to be allowed on commercial basis, ending government's monopoly in this sector. And rupees 50,000 crore has been allocated to create diversified opportunities, including enhancing evacuation infrastructure. Moving on, coal bed methane extraction rights will be auctioned from CIL's mines, and to enhance investment in mineral sector, 500 mining blocks will be offered through open and transparent auction process. And moving on, seamless composite minerals exploration cum mining cum production regime has been introduced, and joint auction of bauxite and coal mineral blocks to boost aluminium industry's competitiveness. And transfer leases and sale of surplus unused mineral has been allowed, and rationalization of stamp duty has also been done. So these are the key points that we have told you now. And Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman announced commercial mining of coal by the private sector, ending government monopoly on the sector. Let's take a listen what she said.
We are bringing in commercial mining in coal sector. Coal is a government monopoly. That government monopoly is what is now being removed. Commercial mining of coal on a revenue sharing basis would help more coal availability and also more coal availability at market prices. Liberalized entries will be allowed for people to participate for a range of coal blocks, and for those who produce well before the deadline, incentives also will be given.
She also elaborated on the reforms in the mining sector. Let's take a listen.
A seamless composite exploration cum mining cum production regime is being brought in. 500 mining blocks would be offered through this open transparent mechanism. Joint auction of the necessary two like bauxite and coal will happen so that it can enhance aluminium industry's competitiveness and will help aluminium industry now to reduce electricity cost. We would also like to remove the distinction between captive and non-captive mines. So that will also help in transferring of mining leases and sale of surplus and sale of unused minerals.
So, explaining about the policy reforms in the mineral sector there. So, Prime Minister Narendra Modi lauded the reforms announced by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. He, in a tweet, said that the measures will create employment and give a boost to the economy. Prime Minister Narendra Modi tweeted, and I quote, "Important sectors such as coal, minerals, defence, aviation, space and atomic energy have been covered in the announcements by the FM today. The measures and reforms announced will create many business opportunities and contribute to economic transformation." So, this is what he tweeted. Important sectors such as coal, minerals, defence, aviation, space and atomic energy have been covered in the announcements by the Finance Minister today. The measures and reforms announced will create many business opportunities and contribute to economic transformation. And also, Minister for Coal and Mining Prahlad Joshi termed the reforms announced by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman as path-breaking, as the 500 mining blocks will be offered to the private sector through a transparent and open auction mechanism.
ये तो ये path breaking reforms है. So today whatever is announcement is made, by that exploration which was the major shortfall in this sector, that we have addressed. हम अभी ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा एक्सप्लोरेशन करेंगे. हम पहले G2 लेवल पे जो हम माइन ऑक्शन करते थे, अभी G4 लेवल में ही करते हैं. दुनिया में हम थर्ड लार्जेस्ट रिसोर्स है कोयला में, फिर भी हम इंपोर्ट करते थे. इसके दो कारण था. हमारा एक्सप्लोरेशन नहीं होता था. 1 बिलियन टन ये 23-24 तक वो अचीव करे, और बाकी जो शॉर्टफॉल है वो हम निधि क्षेत्र से हम करने का एक प्रस्ताव रखे. 5 करोड़ एम्प्लॉयमेंट अभी है, वो 10 करोड़ होने वाला है, और जीडीपी के लिए कंट्रीब्यूशन हो रहा है आज के दिन में कोयला और खनन से 4.1 लाख करोड़ हो रहा है. अभी वो 8 लाख करोड़ होगा. मीन्स डबल एम्प्लॉयमेंट एंड जीडीपी से डबल होगा. यही आत्मनिर्भर भारत है, यही प्रधानमंत्री जी का सोच है.
And welcoming the reforms in the coal and mining sector, Secretary General of FICCI, Dilip Chenoy, said that the commercialization of coal sector will attract numerous investors and give the sector a big boost. The composite exploration cum mining cum production regime will help the industries in the sector.
कोल सेक्टर में कमर्शियल माइनिंग अलाउ करने का और रेवेन्यू शेयर मॉडल में जाने का एक बहुत ही अच्छा कदम है, और इस सेक्टर में बहुत ही निवेश लाएगा, और कोल की जो माइनिंग है उसकी बहुत बढ़ोतरी होगी, और जो डोमेस्टिक नीड्स हैं वो एक तरीके से पूरे होंगे. दूसरा, माइनिंग सेक्टर में उन्होंने जो कंपोजिट लाइसेंस की बात की थी, एक्सप्लोरेशन, माइनिंग और प्रोडक्शन, ये बहुत कंपनीज के लिए फ़ायदेमंद होगा. और साथ में एल्यूमिनियम कंपनीज को जो बॉक्साइट और कोल का उन्होंने जॉइंट जो प्रोजेक्ट किया है वो उनके लिए एक तरीके से श्योरिटी लाएगी और एल्यूमिनियम प्रोडक्शन में बढ़ोतरी करेगी.
And also that brings our in focus today, which is Atmanirbhar Bharat, new horizons of growth. And we all know that first tranche of relief focused on MSMEs, second was on poor and middle class, and the third about farmers and allied sectors, and now today the fourth tranche, new horizons of growth. And we have Mr. Ranjit Rath, who is CMD MECL DG GSI, and Shishir Sinha, who is Senior Deputy Editor, Hindu Business Line. We are so glad to have you both on our show, sir. My first question to you, sir, what do you make of the steps announced by the, I should say reforms announced by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman today? Mr. Rath, first of all, first will come to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. It is actually a very, very laudable and commendable step.
Yeah.
Path breaking rather, and we are looking forward to a great ecosystem which is going to have a very transformative impact both in terms of economy and in terms of population, employment generation, in terms of Make in India for equipment manufacturing. It's a multifold impact.
Right, and also Mr. Sinha, if I come to you, what do you make of these steps announced, ending the government monopoly in coal sector for a long time? We'll come back to you, sir, but coming back to you, Mr. Rath, if we talk about captive and non-captive mining difference, which is almost over, it's very clear with Finance Minister's speech, but if we give more importance to indigenous sectors, what all allied sectors will be benefited?
See, if you look at today's announcement, these are very, very thought-provoking. I mean, the announcement contains that you could mine. There would be a joint auction of bauxite and coal. This is highly technical thing, like to manufacture aluminium, where power is one of the most 30% to 40% is a component to manufacture aluminium. Coal is the feedstock. So when you jointly auction it, both bauxite and coal, it's phenomenal. When it comes to distinction between captive and non-captive, you are actually removing bottlenecks and enhancing production, which is the basic requirement as of now. And then I'll take it a bit further. One of the very revolutionary thing which has happened today is incentivizing production. That means if you were shifting your line of production before, that means you will be incentivized, you will be rewarded. So everyone would look at completing the cycle and achieving or the target before.
Mr. Sinha, if you can hear us now, I was asking you, what do you make of these steps or social reforms, I should say, announced by Finance Minister today in her speech?
Before coming to the coal sector, I just want to add some points there. The first one, which is a very, very critical from the structural point of view, structural reform point of view, that an empowered group of secretaries has been set up to give faster clearance to the investment thing. And second is the land bank of almost say 500 acres, 500 acre kind of thing. So these two are the very, very critical from the point of view of the investment proposal. Now coming to the coal sector, of course, it is a very big development. And when you are talking about that, anyone can bid for that, and then he can sell coal to any consumer. That is one important policy change, because earlier, if I can understand correctly, that earlier there was a restriction on the end users kind of thing. It's a kind of captive kind of thing. That restriction has been removed. So I think this is one of the biggest thing, and of course 50 blocks will be auctioned. So that will give an opportunity to all the bidders who want to participate in the coal sector reform process.
Yeah, but Mr. Sinha, what I make of this aluminium sector, I think will be benefited a lot with joint auction of bauxite and coal mineral blocks, and that will also have a spin-off effect on many industries, you think?
Certainly, aluminium is just one example. That there are many other sectors where you need two different kind of minerals, and also you need coal or something like that. So the problem is that one is bidding from one particular mineral, then another one is bidding from another set of mineral, then third one is involved in the production sector. So it's a very complicated process. Now, when one particular bidder is going to bid for say a bauxite, and then he's also going to bid for coal. So it will be a comprehensive package available for him, and that will help to establish the production chain. That will help him to facilitate the production chain, and that will certainly be good for entire sector. So I think this is the composite concept is very, very good in mining, when two kind of minerals which they are supplementing each other. If the particular bidder is allowed to bid for both the things simultaneously, that will certainly help him.
Absolutely, very valid point made by you, Mr. Sinha. But Mr. Rath, if I come back to you once again, we have given a clear signal and clean signal to everyone that we will be Atmanirbhar.
Just to add what my co-panelists said, by virtue of this commercialization, you know what is going to happen? It's going to kind of bring in competition. It's going to kind of encourage addition of or adoption of new technologies in the mining sector. And this will kind of create an ecosystem of optimum utilization of natural resources. Plus, I would also look at the kind of incentives or opportunities which is going to be created for newer territories, coal gasification, coal liquefaction, which will actually cater to our gas economy, which will supplement and reduce our dependency on crude oil import. And further, it will actually boost Make in India in terms of mechanization of mines. So it is actually going to kind of revolutionize the entire mining sector.
Absolutely, very valid point made by you, sir. It will definitely boost Make in India. Thanks for joining us on the show. Thank you so much. Mr. Sinha, I was asking Mr. Rath also that we have given a signal to everyone that we will be Atmanirbhar, but I'll come back to you. But moving on to our next reform or social reform announced by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, and talking of big ticket reforms in the aviation sector that will spur growth. The focus is on efficient airspace management for civil aviation, and which will lead to an expected reduction of flying costs to the tune of rupees 1,000 crore, and bidding for 6 new airports under PPP model has also been opened, and this is out of the total of 12 new airports in the pipeline. And India to be made a global aircraft maintenance, repair and overhaul hub, and for this the tax regime for maintenance, repair and overhaul ecosystem has been rationalized. So, bidding for 6 new airports in PPP model, and moving on, 12 new airports in the sector, and convergence of defence and civil sector MRO has also been envisaged. So, tax regime for MRO ecosystem which has been rationalized, and the space sector has also seen steps taken to boost the private participation. So, private sector allowed to use ISRO's facilities, Indian Space Research Organization facilities, and we are telling you the boost for aviation and space sectors, which is Atmanirbhar Bharat Tranche 4 announced by the Finance Minister on Saturday, and planetary exploration, outer space travel opened to private sector. This was explained in the Finance Minister press conference today held at 4 p.m. and the first such step is to create a level playing field for the private sector in space organization. So, these are the boosts we are telling you for aviation and space sectors, which is Atmanirbhar Bharat. And announcing sectoral reform in aviation section, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman highlighted the issue of only 60% of the Indian airspace being available for commercial flights. She announced easing of restrictions on further utilization of the airspace, and the decision will rope in a benefit of 1,000 crore rupees for the aviation sector, as it will drastically reduce the time and fuel consumed by the commercial flights.
Only about 60% of the Indian airspace is freely available. And that's because airspace is fairly restricted for its use for civil purposes and defense purposes. Optimum utilization of airspace is best, because after all the fuel spent is also something which we import. Huge bill goes for that. If we are able to optimally utilize the airspace and reach quickly, every one of our time is saved. And therefore, now rationalization is going to happen. We will be able to get to our destination at the shortest possible time. This is an environment friendly step, but having very big implication on India's fuel importable and also for civil aviation, which in India has biggest potential in growth. Civil aviation is up for a big leap.
And also reacting to the announcements, Chairman of Civil Aviation Committee, Maharashtra Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Lalit Gandhi said that these reforms will give a boost to aviation sector and generate employment.
6 नए एयरपोर्ट्स प्राइवेट प्लेयर्स के लिए ओपन करने की घोषणा की है, जिससे भारत के सिविल एविएशन हवाई यातायात में बहुत सारी सुविधा होगी, और हवाई यातायात की जितनी सुविधा बढ़ती है उतना तेजी से देश का विकास होता है, और भारत को ग्लोबल एयरक्राफ्ट मेंटेनेंस हब बनाने की एक नई संकल्पना आज वित्त मंत्री ने इस प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस के माध्यम से रखी है। इसका मैं स्वागत करता हूं। एयरक्राफ्ट मेंटेनेंस का एक बड़ा क्षेत्र है जिसमें भारत को काफ़ी सारा रेवेन्यू मिल सकता है, और पूरे दुनिया के एयरक्राफ्ट कंपनी को भारत में आने के लिए हम इसके माध्यम से आमंत्रित कर पाएंगे।
And former ISRO Director Dr. K. Radhakrishnan welcomed the announcement made by the Finance Minister to bring reforms in the space sector. The Finance Minister said that the government will encourage participation of private players in the space sector, but it will be a cautious move. Private sector will be also allowed to use ISRO facilities.
The Indian space sector has a vital role to play for realizing the Atmanirbhar Bharat that was announced by the Honorable Prime Minister. Today, we heard two structural reforms for the Indian space sector. I should say they are forward-looking, natural, and logical.
And Mr. Shishir Sinha is with us, and Mr. Ajay Lele, who is the space analyst, IDCA, he is joining us also live. Thank you for joining us on Doordarshan, sir. Sir, what do you make of these steps or reforms announced on aviation and space sector and space and atomic energy, which have been exclusively preserved with the government? Mr. Lele?
I think for all these years, yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can, sir. Go ahead.
I think for all these years, particularly space and atomic energy have been considered as strategic sectors, and hence there was not much of a tinkering which had happened with these sectors. But now, understanding the challenges which we are going to face in a post-COVID-19 era, I think government has taken a right decision where they are now expecting more amount of a private investment, particularly in the aviation and space sector. And interestingly, as far as the atomic energy sector is concerned, they are looking at using atomic energy sector for the purposes of experimentation into medical field. So understanding what challenges our country as well as the entire world has faced owing to COVID-19 crisis, I think there is a need to boost up your medical analysis and assessment of various aspects. So particularly developing a research reactor which will be under public-private partnership, which will give certain amount of impetus to the cancer research also. I think this is a very good step. As far as space is concerned, there are 2 to 3 important aspects. The first aspect is allowing the private industry to use ISRO's testing facilities. I think this is a very major step because for all these years, the private industry was in a position to build certain amount of components and other systems which are required for space launches or for making of satellites. But they were unable to test it because testing facilities are too expensive facilities, and startups and private industries, particularly medium enterprises, are not in a position to invest so much amount of money. So if they have been allowed to use ISRO facilities, I think that will be a major boost for them. The second aspect is that allowing private investment into your planetary programs as far as human space program also. I think what is there in Anvil in coming 1 or 2 years is India's ambitious project of Gaganyaan. The project is costing around 10,000 crores, and definitely if a private investment comes into this sector, that will be essentially help ISRO in a post-COVID era where finances is going to be a challenge. For planetary missions also, I think now the time has come where private industry, particularly the scientific community in various universities and other areas also, should invest into planetary research program, and it has to be a joint program of ISRO scientific community, scientists from other agencies operating in India and a private sector. So I think that is also a welcome step. Another aspect is selling of a data which is being generated by a remote sensing satellite. I think all our agencies within the country were usually dependent on purchasing the data from foreign sources. It was costing a fortune for them. This particular assessment that we need to give our own data generated by our own satellites is a very good idea, and I think that will also give a major boost to India's startup sector and other industrial sectors.
But Mr. Lele, if I can quote Finance Minister, she announced that restrictions on utilization of the Indian airspace, of which only 60% is freely available right now, will be eased, and this will bring in a total of benefit of rupees 1,000 crore per year for the aviation sector.
I think this is definitely going to be a boost because you see, for all these years, we were restricting our airspace because of our civilian requirements as well as because of our strategic requirements. But now you need to slightly get into a strategic domain also in such a fashion that our strategic interests are totally secured, but at the same time, there is a possibility, because you see modern day technology is allowing you to use these types of changes. You got now your own GPS system available, India's Navik program. Then there are a few other equipments also which are available where you can actually ensure that your strategic interests are not compromised, but at the same time you can allow more usage of the civilian airspace. So instead of having only 60% of the airspace which civilian aircrafts or civilian industry is using right now, I think it will give a boost, because there will be good amount of a saving as far as your air travel is concerned, both in terms of time and in terms of aviation fuel also. So that will reduce the cost factor also. So this is again a good step, and what Finance Minister said, definitely I see that there is a logic behind it, that there will be good amount of a saving over here.
Absolutely, Mr. Sinha. Also, it is a boost for the aviation sector, and the maintenance cost for all airlines in turn will go down, and again it will have a ripple effect on customers, and also the fare will go down.
In fact, MRO has a very huge potential, and many of the airlines companies, especially those who are in, say, Gulf, or those that are in the Southeast Asian companies, they have a dedicated wing for MRO, and they are earning good amount of money. So it's a good opportunity for Indian MRO industry. Of course, there are certain facilities already developed in India, but it needs to have much more support from the government of India. And I believe after this announcement, MRO will get a good boost, and especially companies who are going to Middle East or Southeast Asian companies, they will prefer India to have this kind of services, and that will certainly help the entire aviation industry.
Absolutely. Also, Mr. Sinha, the reforms that have been announced for space and atomic energy, I think I should ask Mr. Lele this question. Other governments did not consider this at all, Mr. Lele.
You see, over a period of time now, ISRO has established itself as one of the most important players in India's space architecture. Over a period of time, ISRO has gained good amount of experience. Now their systems have become more reliable because more number of testings have happened. Then there has been a major boost by Prime Minister Modi as far as India's space sector is concerned. Now we are looking at India's space sector not only as a sector which will launch satellites. We are looking at India's space sector for multiple reasons. Most important reason now why we are looking at India's space sector is using this sector for commercial benefits too. We have been launching satellites for a couple of decades now for other agencies. But now we are in the process of developing our own small space launcher also, which will boost us the entire business of launching small or medium scale satellites. Then other aspect is that we are looking at space as a foreign policy derivative too. We have launched a South Asia satellite engaging the other countries. There have been talks of sharing the data at the level of a BRICS. Then we want to share the data of a Navik system also, the communication part of it. We have established ground infrastructure for various other countries, particularly India's neighbors. So now space has been looked differently than what we used to look at it in the earlier years, where it was only considered to be a sector for socio-economic development. Now we are looking at a space from socio-economic development, for strategic purposes, for commercial purposes, and also as an instrument in foreign policy. I think because of these multiple roles which we are giving to our space sector, for years to come, we will have to move towards privatization, and today's announcement could be considered as a first step towards that.
Absolutely, easing of restrictions to bring 1,000 crore profit. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Lele. So MRO has been rationalized, and also the bidding for airports have also been opened. So moving on now, significant steps have been announced to boost defense production, and if you can have the video wall here. Yeah, here we go. So FDI limit in defense manufacturing under automatic route raised from 49% to 74%, and it's a big step. And steps to improve autonomy, accountability and efficiency in ordnance supplies have been announced, that include incorporation of ordnance and factory boards. So these are the valid points boosting defense production. These were the points that we were telling you. And now Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman unveiled structural reforms for various sectors to help build a self-reliant India under the Atmanirbhar Bharat campaign today. foreign direct investment limit in defense manufacturing under automatic route will be raised from 49% to 74%. And champions of the defense sector also welcomed the reforms announced on Saturday. Ashish Kansal, member of FICCI Defence and Aerospace Committee, said that the reforms announced today address the core concerns of the sector.
Really address the core needs and longing needs of the Indian defence industry by addressing the core issues. The imports have been restricted by coming up with a list of items which cannot be imported. Make in India has been given a big boost by increasing the FDI, which will now result in flow of crucial technologies to India and really enable a true Make in India. The accountability issue has been addressed by corporatization of the ordnance factories, and one of the big needs of the Indian industry of ensuring timely procurement procedures has also been addressed too.
Right, and also Baba Kalyani, chairman of the Bharat Force, said that becoming more and more indigenous will not only help the defense sector but will also give a boost to the economy. The increase of foreign direct investment share in defense manufacturing from 49% to 74% will attract multiple foreign investors.
Reform in the defense sector is a very welcoming statement. It's a dream come true for the industry that's been engaged in this sector, and I think it will give a big boost to the manufacturing sector in India. This is one area where India needs to become self-reliant, and therefore the self-reliance in defense production, where a list of capital goods, a list of platforms that will be produced only in India will be generated, will give a big boost to the Indian defense sector. And the FDI in the defense sector, taking it up to 74%, must be seen with this in mind. Companies can come and set up their facilities with 74% ownership, will create technology and capability in India.
And now let's listen in to the Finance Minister on reforms in defense sector.
To improve the autonomy, accountability and efficiency in ordnance supplies which are being made by the ordnance factories. And for this, we intend to corporatize ordnance factory boards. I like to emphasize here, corporatization is not privatization. It doesn't mean that the ordnance factory boards are going to be privatized. No, they're not being privatized. But corporatized they will be. We want them to be better managed. We also eventually hope that they will get listed in the stock market.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the defense sector now. So like we said, 74% reform from 49%, big and maybe a shocking decision, and we have started working on defense corridors, and second, our focus is to make in India. Mr. Sinha, if I come to you, do you think we'll be able to achieve our target of exports with these new reforms?
Certainly, there are three components. One, as you rightly mentioned about increasing the FDI limit under automatic route from 49 to 74%. The second one is the corporatization of Ordnance Board. That means they will go for the listing also, stock market listing also. And the third one, which is very, very critical, that banning the list of import, banning the import of the various arms and weapons. Let me just give you one figure. That is done. That is on the base of one study conducted by a Swiss research firm and Sweden-based research firm, and it said that between 2008 and 2017, India imported something around $100 million worth of weapons, and during 2004 and 2018, it was the second largest importer after Saudi Arabia. So now the time has come to reduce the dependency, and we should not forget that whatsoever expenditure we are making on defense sector, they are mostly going on these kind of things. if
Well,
we can,
yeah, I got your point, Mr. Sinha. I'll come back to you. Lieutenant General retired Sanjay Kulkarni, who is a former Director General Infantry, is also joining us. Welcome on our show, sir. Sir, 74% reform from 49% and big. And maybe, what do you say? Is it a shocking decision?
See, what happens is absorption of this 40 from 49 to 74% is a very good thing. There's no denying the fact. But what we need to be really careful about is that the mother companies from abroad mustn't have front companies over here. When it's 79% of 74% of the FDI being given to the people who are putting in money, obviously they would expect some good returns out of it. And that itself is a very big boon, because with this investment comes technology, and with the technology come good practices. And with the good practices, you will find the productivity, which invariably would be around, say, 15 lakhs to 20 lakhs per individual, suddenly shoots up to say about 40 to 50 lakhs per individual. And therefore, what we are actually being able to give back, and what we are talking about import, the import will be nix, because firstly, the government has stated very clearly they are going to ban import of certain equipment. The list will soon be out, but I'm sure the basic ammunition, the basic weapons, the government wouldn't allow it to import. It's only critical stuff, and for which the budgetary support will already be there, and that itself is a big boon. So we know exactly what is to be made in India, and that is what this indigenization. And again, as the finance minister said, this corporatization is not privatization. So we have a lien on all these ordnance factories. At the same time, we bring in the best practices of the corporate world, and to ensure that we are self-reliant and we are not dependent on abroad and imports, which invariably are huge, going up to $100 billion in a span of just about 10 years.
Absolutely, you're saying it's a very good decision from 49% to 74% reform, and with good technology comes good practices. But sir, what do you think? How will the world investors take these steps?
You're asking me?
Yeah.
Yeah, what happens is, anybody who's been given only 49% is still not the shareholder. Now with 74%, he is the majority shareholder. When anybody is investing such a huge sum, and all these defense industries are capital intensive, and therefore he would ensure that you get your bang for the buck. He's not going to invest. Nobody's going to invest 74% if he's not going to get returns. It was okay with us when the government is investing, and even if we were just about squaring with the money, it's okay. Even if there was a little loss, the government would bear it. But anyone who's investing money, and that as large as 74%, he will ensure that he gets bang for the buck. He gets every penny. At the same time, he'll ensure that the practices are there. He will also ensure maintenance of whatever the equipment that he gives you. Though, of course, initially the cost of the equipment might be less, but if you see, the dependency, the AMC, what they call it, the annual maintenance contract for all of this, is going to rise, because no equipment lasts only. They recover their money of the maintenance in about 10 years, but the equipment might last about 30 to 40 years. So that is something which we'll have to take care of.
Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Kulkarni. And if we move on, Mr. Sinha is with us. We'll come back to you, sir. On the whole, there has been a special focus on structural reforms, and if you can have the video wall in front of us. So these policy, here we go. So these policy reforms aim at fast tracking investment efforts. So we are talking about the overall, which are government pushes reforms. So focus on structural reforms, and we are talking about the government pushes reforms. So policy reforms to fast track investment efforts, and on another front, power distribution in union territories will be privatized, and all industrial parks to be upgraded. So this is a very important point. And the next point is atomic energy related reforms have also been announced. So establishing atomic research reactor in PPP model has also been permitted. So this is a very vital point. So Union Minister Nitin Gadkari hailed the reforms as landmark. He tweeted, and I quote, "The landmark structural and policy reforms in sectors such as coal, minerals, power, defense, space, atomic sector and civil aviation will create jobs, boost economy and take India towards sustainable growth." That's what Nitin Gadkari tweeted. The landmark structural and policy reforms in sectors will create jobs, boost economy and take India towards sustainable growth. And this is what Mr. JP Nadda tweeted. Today's announcement by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman signal major economic affairs, and they will have direct impact on 10 key sectors of our economy and will significantly improve. Today's policy reform announcement will attract huge investments into defense, coal, mining, power and social infrastructure, aviation, space, atomic energy sectors, and help India's aim of a $5 trillion economy. He also said, I congratulate Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji for translating Atmanirbhar Bharat vision into reality, and with emphasis on procurement on indigenously produced notified weapons platforms for the armed forces. That's what he tweeted. Indigenization of imported spares will give a fillip to Make in India and lower imports, and today's announcements by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman signal major economic reforms to realize the goal. So, Mr. Sinha is with us. So, for Mr. Sinha, for economic activity to come back, it is important for consumption points to become operational. And what other measures you think require to boost economy?
So, see, at this moment, when you are talking about restarting the economy, the most important thing is that whether the consumer is ready to spend or not.
Yeah.
And if a consumer has to spend, he needs money in his hand. We all know that employment situation is not very good, especially in the month of April. If I quote Center for Monitoring Indian Economy figure, almost 11 crore people have lost their job, and people there in various other sectors have to forego part of their salary. Still, the optimism is there, still the hope is there that there will be some support in terms of cash transfer. What we have seen in rural area, when we are talking about PM Kisan and when people are, when the government is providing some sort of cash support to the farmers, can we think of the same kind of support to the urban poor? Because they are also consumers, and if they start consuming, because when the companies are producing something, they need consumer. If you don't want any market, if you don't see the goods are sold, they are not going to produce anything. So revive the economic cycle, we need a big boost to the consumption. So hopefully during next 2 to 3 days, we will see some kind of support in terms of consumption support. At this moment, out of 46 pages, if I count correctly, during last 4 tranches, these 46 are on the structural reforms for the poor, for the migrants, and now we need support for the consumer who are belonging to the lower middle income group, middle income group. They need some kind of support from the government in terms of cash support. Can the government do it? We will have to wait.
Absolutely rightly said by you, sir. We are going through the biggest crisis, and this was the fourth consecutive day of press conference by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, and on Sunday also she'll hold a press conference. But my question to you is, sir, what are the ways you think and how to restore semblance of a normal life?
See, we will have a new normal. We can't have a normal during the pre-COVID region. So we will have a new normal where the consumers will have some hesitation in spending because of the uncertainty. But still, the hope is that the Indian economy, if we compare with all other developed economies and the other economies, if we take figures from Indian International Monetary Fund, it said that 170 countries will be in recession. The 2 countries, India and China, will have some kind of growth. And the good thing is that agriculture is showing good kind of, it's a silver lining at this moment. If you take the food grain output estimate announced yesterday, it's almost 30 crore ton of projections we are expecting during 2019-20. The monsoon is going to be normal. So if we have a good kind of support from the rural side, because there we are expecting some kind of additional revival in comparison to the urban area, of course, economic activities will get a boost. And at the same time, the government, what kind of support in terms of cash, in terms of interest subvention, in terms of cheaper credit, easy credit. So all these things will be required during the next 6 months or so to boost the consumption. We have prepared the ground for investment. Now the time has come to prepare the similar ground or much stronger ground for the consumption. Then only economy be in a better shape.
Absolutely, sir. Had we not locked down, we would have been staring at much higher numbers. Thank you so much, sir. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Let's move on. Prime Minister Narendra Modi thanked US President Donald Trump after the latter announced that US will be donating ventilators to India. Donald Trump also stated that India and US are cooperating on vaccine development as well. Prime Minister Modi expressed his gratitude via a tweet. He said, and I quote, "Thank you, POTUS, real Donald Trump, and this pandemic is being fought collectively by all of us. In such times, it is always important for nations to work together and do as much as possible to make our world healthier and free from COVID-19. More power to India-US friendship." And this is what he tweeted. Now let's move on. Truck collision in UP's Auraiya has claimed lives of 24 migrant laborers, injuring 38 others. President Ramnath Kovind, Vice President Venkaiah Naidu, Prime Minister Narendra Modi expressed condolences over the mishap. UP Chief Minister has announced compensation of 2 lakh rupees for those killed and 50,000 rupees for severely injured. And in another road mishap, 6 laborers have been killed in Madhya Pradesh.
Movement of workers stranded in different parts of the country to their place of origin is on. Workers heading towards their homes from distant places are also becoming victim of accidents. One such heart-wrenching incident took place in Auraiya in Uttar Pradesh, where in a road accident 24 migrant laborers lost their lives. All of them were travelling in a truck from Delhi and nearby areas and heading towards eastern Uttar Pradesh. Those who died in the accident belong to Bihar, Jharkhand and West Bengal. The injured have been admitted to Safai Medical College.
टेलर उनको हल्का सा धक्का मारा, इसके बाद इसका बैलेंस खराब हो गया। बैलेंस जब खराब हो गया तो इनके जो गाड़ी था ना साइड में, उसमें जाके टक्कर मारी।
आउटर में रुक गए थोड़ी देर, हम तो उतनी देर में रुके हम लोग। उतनी देर बाद एक दूसरा वाहन आया तो हम लोग को टक्कर मारा, तो हम लोग जो हम लोग को वाहन था वो खाई में गिर गया।
Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath expressed his heartfelt condolences at the deaths of the migrant labourers in the accident and directed to give financial assistance of 50,000 rupees to those who have grievous injuries. Chief Minister has expressed condolences to the kin of the deceased.
बहुत दुखद और दर्दनाक घटना है। मुख्यमंत्री जी ने 2-2 लाख रुपए जो मृतक हैं उनको और 50-50 हज़ार रुपया जो घायल हैं उनकी परिजनों को उपलब्ध कराने की भी सिफारिश की है। मुख्यमंत्री जी ने संज्ञान में लेते हुए त्वरित कार्रवाई की है कि बॉर्डर के दोनों जो एसओएचओ थे उनको निलंबित किया है।
BJP MP and former Union Minister Ram Shankar Kataria went to the spot of the accident, expressed shock at the incident and said that workers need to be sent to their homes. While Bihar's Labour Minister Vijay Sinha appealed to workers to go home by trains and available resources at the disposal of the state governments.
निश्चित रूप से हमें लगता है कि इस घटना के बाद कोई न कोई प्रबंधन की दृष्टि से मजदूर अपने घर पहुंच सकें, इस दिशा में निश्चित रूप से सरकार और कोई ठोस कदम उठाने की कोशिश करेगी।
सरकार पूरी जिम्मेवारी के साथ अपने मजदूरों को घर वापसी की तैयारी कर रही है, ला भी रहा है। और मैं आग्रह करूंगा अपने श्रमिक भाई से कि अपनी जिंदगी को आप दांव पर न लगाएं।
President in a tweet said, "Extremely saddened to learn about the tragic road accident in Auraiya, Uttar Pradesh." While Vice President Venkaiah Naidu said, deeply anguished by the loss of lives in a road accident. In his message, Prime Minister said, "The road accident in Auraiya, Uttar Pradesh is very tragic. I express my grief and sorrow to the bereaved families." Railway Minister Piyush Goyal requested the state governments to approve Shramik special trains. The Auraiya District Administration has made special arrangement for sending back workers to their homes. They are being sent in state transport buses.
जो दूर के जनपदों से, दूसरे प्रदेशों से जो यहाँ पे आ रहे हैं ट्रक से, हम यहाँ पे उतार करके उनको सुरक्षित वाहन दे रहे हैं, यहाँ बस उपलब्ध कराया जा रहा है।
While in another accident in Madhya Pradesh's Sagar, due to truck overturning, 6 persons have died. The dead include 3 women, 1 child, as well as 2 men. All these workers were travelling from Maharashtra and going to different districts of Uttar Pradesh.
ये आज सुबह सागर जिले से लगा हुआ बक्सवाहा थाना क्षेत्र जो कि जिला छतरपुर में आता है, वहाँ की घटना है। एक ये महाराष्ट्र से जो ट्रक जा रहा था ये पलट गया, जिसमें कपड़े के रोल्स थे और इसमें कुछ मजदूर सवार थे।
Earlier, the centre told the state.
Moving ahead, the Indian Railways has operated 1,074 Shramik special trains since May 1st, ferrying more than 14 lakh workers. On Friday, the railway said it had received more than 1,000 approvals from states in the last 15 days to ferry migrants home, with most workers being received by Uttar Pradesh, followed by Bihar. Here are more details.
Indian Railways is ramping up its mission back home for the return of migrant workers and people in destitute through Shramik and special trains. Over 14 lakh stranded people have been transported back to their home state in the past 15 days. Indian Railways has operated 1,074 Shramik special trains across the country till 15th May. These special trains have originated from Andhra Pradesh, Delhi, Gujarat, Haryana, Maharashtra, Punjab, Rajasthan, Tamil Nadu, Telangana, Karnataka, Kerala, Jharkhand, Goa, Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh and Bihar. A batch of passengers reached Dibrugarh from New Delhi via special train, whereas workers travelling in Bihar Shramik Special were screened and registered, complying to government guidelines at the railway station.
यहाँ पे लोगों को जो है सबसे पहले मेडिकल जांच की जाती है, डॉक्टर्स मेडिकल जांच करते हैं, जो फिट पाए जाते हैं उनका मेडिकल सर्टिफिकेट दिया जाता है, फिर उनको सीरियल नंबर वाइज बिठाया जाता है, फिर जिस हिसाब से हमारे पास टिकट का अरेंजमेंट होता है उस हिसाब से लोगों को जो है यहाँ से हम बस में बिठाकर उनको पानी वगैरह देकर और फिर विदा करते हैं यहाँ से।
मैं वहाँ पे फंस गई थी, एक्चुअली मैं इवेंट्स मैनेजमेंट के वर्क से गई थी तो हम वहाँ पे फंस गए थे, तो फिर अनाउंस हुआ कि दिल्ली के लिए ट्रेन सरकार ने अप्लाई कर दिया तो इसलिए अब आए हैं। मैं वहाँ से 2 months के बाद आई हूँ। आई एम हैप्पी।
Special trains are moving a large number of people to their destination, and in doing so, all essential precautions, thermal screening and maintaining proper social distancing is being ensured. The happiness of reaching back home was evident on the faces of passengers who reached New Delhi from Ahmedabad, Bengaluru and Patna.
Absolutely, more than 14 lakh have been transported back home. Moving on, Vande Bharat mission, which started on May 7th to bring back stranded Indian nationals back home from other countries, initiated its second phase of operation from Saturday, which is May 16, by sending 3 Air India flights to Dubai and Abu Dhabi. Under the second phase of Vande Bharat mission, a total of 149 flights, including feeder flights, will be operated to bring back Indians from 31 countries.
The second phase of Vande Bharat kick-started on Saturday with the first flight from Dubai to Kochi. Flight carrying 177 passengers departed from Dubai at 1 p.m. and arrived at 6:25 p.m. in Kochi. Indian consulate in Dubai said that care has been taken to accommodate women in advanced stages of pregnancy, medical cases and others, and also more flights will operate in the coming week to take back distressed Indians.
We have this flight to Kochi, in which there are lots of distressed people who are there. We have 75 pregnant ladies who are going on this flight. There was a lot of pressure from pregnant ladies who wanted to go back, so we thought that we should accommodate as much as possible in this particular flight.
We have put some medical crew also, so there are 2 doctors and 2 nurses also on board the flight to take care of any special need arising during the journey. So we wish them, all the travelers, a very best to them, and we are happy that we were able to accommodate all the requests, whatever in the best possible manner.
After a successful phase 1 of this massive air evacuation mission, phase 2, starting today, will bring back Indians from some 31 countries that include Russia, Ukraine, Uzbekistan, Germany, Netherlands, France, Spain, Thailand and more. 149 flights, including feeder flights, are part of this phase.
We have 3 flights today from the UAE to India and 18 flights in this coming week. We hope that this will now assist many more Indians to go back urgently to India. We hope to keep this effort going for as long as is required, and we look forward to the support of everyone who has helped this happen, including of course the UAE government and their health services and of course civil aviation authorities.
Ambassador of India.
Absolutely, phase 2 of Vande Bharat mission primarily focusing on Central Asia. Well, that's all we have on Newsnight. Stay tuned for more news and updates. Namaskar.